donut always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We have quite a lot to get into here today, and a lot of still even recovery now from over the weekend. Yes, we have Ida Beza Gardner chiming in with us. Hello to you as well. Hopefully y'all got power in your neck of the woods here. Marco Mendengo saying he loves the show. I appreciate that entirely, because it is our purpose to be here to talk about the things affecting us here in the borderland, of which a few are, say, power outages, immigration issues, what's going on with the city manager, including updates and responses from the city to immigration. They all end up intertwining and intermeshing a whole lot. So appreciate that. But again, all go towards our core missions of A, having live local talk radio here in the borderland, and B, talking about the things that affect us here, because sure, a lot of these things, Market Mendingo was a good calm afternoon. Yeah, definitely at the very least in juxtaposition to yesterday. Okay, I apparently had the good fortune of neither running into stuff on the road that was blown about or having power outages at my place, even though that was definitely a thing for a good swath of it. Again, never really trying to become like the Weather Channel here. You don't have enough. I don't have radar, among other things, at least not like in-house. Sure, I could look it up like the rest of y'all. But point is that yesterday got a little nuts with both the power outages, as many as 180 of them, with thousands without power, even as of last night, even affecting school districts today. So fun times there. But beyond that, some of the kind of, I guess, road issues involving what's going to be the city response to immigration, and really preparation for those new expected dates when it comes to it. Because we have mentioned that the Title 42 arguments have been canceled before the Supreme Court, but I don't think we've gotten enough into the reason, at least what has come out now as the reason behind it. And that's definitely something that is going to maybe put another one of those red letter days on the at least local expectations for responses, for more happening with it, the amped up administration response, just so many swirling concerns. But also there's more being talked about now whenever it comes to what the potential is for the city manager, even as updates are being expected there. So yeah, a lot to get into here today. So hope y'all are safe, didn't blow away, and everything that you had nailed down stayed nailed down. And here's a hint for you. If it was able to be pried loose, it probably wasn't nailed down. So to stop tap dancing around that, the winds yesterday, anyone within our broadcast area might be at least a little bit familiar with what the heck was going on yesterday. Started around noon. And yeah, I think since the 2000s house I inhabit now, it was built then. So I think it's pretty solidly well built, but I definitely had doors slamming in my house that I didn't know could do that just from the air pressure yesterday. So I was, and hopefully still am, knock on wood, lucky enough to not have had any power outages. But if you were among them from yesterday, you certainly were not alone. If you had the ability to look it up anyway, the El Paso Electric power outage map looked like just the world's worst Mardi Gras yesterday, because for some reason they've got, at least what I associate Mardi Gras colors, it's a yellow, green, and purple. So I don't think that was like special for that Tuesday season, which of course was last week, ironically enough, but indicating that there were tons of power outages and all over the place as power lines and other things were being affected, according to El Paso Electric on Twitter as of, I want to say this is late last night. At its height, 39,000 customers were without power yesterday. So yeah, if you were being affected by this, you were certainly not alone, and hopefully have managed to recover a bit. And just some of the pictures out there, including more of those cans, trash and recycling cans strewn all about. I definitely found one migrating on my route there, so maybe I wasn't entirely correct about not encountering anything in the roadways, but it was on like an access road where there were definitely no houses that should have been that front it, so definitely had been traveling a bit. And then we saw trampolines, stuff like that strewn about. If anyone who actually managed to go out to, and congrats again to our winners for the Cheap Trick concert last night. It was a very good show. Maybe more people weren't able to make it out there because, among other things, there was the warnings about a downed power line across I-10 last night. Ended up making me a few minutes late getting there because of the, detours to be taken. So hopefully everyone stayed safe out there. We are looking at, of course, those, it's being reported on nationally, those powerful winter storms expected for our region, not exactly our region, but for large regions of the country. So if you got any questions about that, what is going on, what is expected, of course, the forecast over there from our news partners at KFOX 14. We still got like some winds, but we're going to be relatively, heck, we're looking at 70s by Wednesday. So they'll have the updates for you there with our news partners from KFOX 14. But hope y'all, again, were able to stay safe and keep everything together. I haven't lost anything that I've realized yet. AC was still working, so I don't think that blew off my roof or anything like that. But again, just don't be surprised. Among other things, there were delayed starts or actually closures, particularly the San Elizario ISD. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else who has experience out there, but it looked like that the worst of the weather definitely hits in the Mission Valley area. The actual not even just down, but splintered apart power lines. Again, our news partners at KFOX 14 have the great pictures up there showing just a whole line of telephone poles and power lines knocked down or literally ripped in half in one instance. And this is also one of the few times, I will have to admit and come clean that I have largely muted on my phone those emergency announcements because as much as I feel for the Amber Alerts, if it's local, we usually get news updates to our inbox, but then also there's only so many times I can hear about something happening in Beaumont before I want to then just, let's say, physically educate someone on the distance of Texas, maybe go bang them over the head with that El Paso and Beaumont sign showing the 800 miles between. In any case, this one ended up coming through on my phone, as I'm sure many of y'all did as well, about the severe weather alert warnings that were going on, including the whole, pull over, turn off your lights, all that kind of stuff for severe dust storms. And it was pretty hairy out there. And so, there were roofs ripped off of buildings, trees, palm trees, and things down, and just a whole lot of nastiness that came out from all of that. So, among other things, coming out of that, the San Elizario Independent School District actually had to close down some of its campuses for today in order to have the buildings inspected and make sure that they were, still going to be safe. Outages were still a part of it, but yeah, there are some of the some other districts in town were holding their early college campuses. They were going to be open, but yeah, just wild, windy weekend, and hopefully we're looking at a better one coming up here. So we'll be delving more into those topics right now, including what will be coming out tomorrow from City Council, at least what the expected discussions are on, a few different subjects of great importance, including contract discussion for the city manager. Yeah, we brought that up last week, but there's probably a few more things to discuss, or at least speculate into a bit, as the list of actual action remains a bit sparse, and I fully expect we'll go pretty quickly into executive session, but otherwise, there's also implications from City Council when it comes to immigration, and a little bit more we want to delve into on kind of what the expectations are, if not exactly locally, nationally next, as much as can be forecasted from current conditions and what is being planned. So y'all, of course, again, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk, taking that first break of this hour right now. I got a lot more to talk about here, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Back after this quick break with more on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A police incident has shut down Alameda Avenue east and westbound at Yarborough. Northbound traffic on Yarborough and Alameda is also closed. Southbound traffic is open. Try North Loop Drive or North Carolina as your alternates. 54 south at Trans Mountain. Watch for a mattress on the right shoulder. And Montana Avenue eastbound is slow from Yarborough out to Zaragoza. 8-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by The Verdict with Ted Cruz.
I'm Ben Ferguson.
And I'm Ted Cruz. Why did Biden go to Kiev and not Ohio? Why did the press lie about his fake photo op?
We're going to answer those questions on Verdict with Ted Cruz. So download Verdict with Ted Cruz wherever you get your podcasts now.
On the podcast Really No Really, join best friends Jason Alexander and Peter Tilden, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most baffling, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? No, really?
I think there was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a deepfake.
Really? Wait, that's news to me. That's Really No Really right there.
Really No Really.
Listen to Really No Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity during tax season because so much sensitive info is all together.
Before we start the annual meeting of Sean's personal info, has anyone seen Social Security number?
Not me.
Nope.
Nuh-uh.
Oh, no. He's been stolen.
LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. If you become a victim, we'll work to fix it. No one can monitor all transactions, but you can save up to 25% off your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Identity theft protection starts here.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We have a number of people doing so already, dropping those likes and reactions. We certainly appreciate, including Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Marky Mandingo, Robert Haynes, Ida Beza Gardner, and some more commentary coming in as well, including James Holmes saying, had a shingle blow off my house and hit the rear window of a van and shattered it. Thank God no one was hurt, already fixed it. Wow, that's huge, just from a shingle too. So, I mean, these winds were no joke. I think the highest gust I saw measured was 70, highway speeds. And you get most anything outside of like plushy territory. And yeah, it's not you don't want to be in the way of it. So glad you were safe. And Funky Minutes also asking, see all that trash bins and the power lines. If you're saying all that, was there more than one? I definitely saw not personally, but the image of one, and I guess I wouldn't be surprised if there was more than one, but yeah, if there was, we need to figure something out there. So we also have Austin Redfern chiming in. Hello to you as well. And then Calvin Williams saying, last year, either my neighbor stole my pool or the wind blew it into their yard. Okay, again, I was lucky enough to not to encounter anything in the road, but I definitely saw a kiddie pool that it thankfully did not have a kitty in it, given the location it was in the ditch near where I was going by, and wasn't there at the start of the day. Let's just put it that way. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that. I hope you're talking about a kiddie pool. If it was a whole damn like above ground pool, then I'm thinking that it wasn't the wind, but maybe some two-legged bandits causing that kind of a thing. Anyway, yeah, so hope y'all stay safe out there. And just remember, that's okay. I'll take that when it comes to bad weather. And like, I mean, we don't really get earthquakes. I mean, sure, there are those one-offs that we feel maybe the aftershock of, but I've yet to see substantive impacts, knock on wood here from that. We don't really get blizzards or hurricanes or tornadoes. Again, we have one-offs. I remember, what was it, back in elementary school, to exactly date myself, we all went into the hallway because there was that one really bad storm, and there may have been one reported like in the region but never touched down kind of thing. Yeah. Kevin Williams actually saying, wow, 18-foot pool, watched it go over the wall. Okay, wasn't full at the time, I'm assuming. Otherwise, you start getting into tornado territory there, and I have several additional questions. Anyway, I mean, so yeah, that's a pretty intense thing and something we're decently familiar with around this area, I gotta say. So again, keep it nailed down, keep it secured as much as possible, or bring it the heck inside, otherwise you might not have it anymore. So as much as we are having a lot of fun talking about the weather, not something Marky Mandingo not filled with water, which is, the completely separate issue there. But again, just keep it safe and as much as you can. That was in the process of setting it up and just sounds like it was bad timing for you, which is unfortunate, I gotta say. So hope you were able to figure it out and get it back for yourself. But yeah, that's why you got to pay attention to these forecasts sometimes. I mean, I was being told about by our news partners here saying that, we're going to have bad winds coming up this weekend. And so anything else coming up, again, we're looking at some surprisingly warm-ish weather. Supposed to hit 70 by midweek, and then even back in the but then we got like more wind blowing. Okay, I'm not going to try to do the actual weather forecast for us. Trust our news partners to do that. But on Hodo Way to asking, did you guys see the traveling RV flip over in Chaparral? Yes, that is. I didn't mention that one, but that was definitely another one that was one of those examples. That's why whenever we have these bad winds, I look for those, high wind shear type vehicles, your box trucks, your tractor trailers, your, again, like RV trailer, I guess would be the right way to put it here. Just, I stay smooth the hell away from them in these circumstances because that's how you have just a real bad time. Anyway, besides all the weather going on, and we don't end up usually trying to chase down or follow individual crimes happening in our region or in our city because there's, it's just not, we're not really set up for it. And we trust our news partners at KFOX 14 to bring you all the coverage of it. But a couple of incidents happening place either today or over the weekend warranting a little bit more talk. It kind of feels like, including an 18-year-old man accused of pointing a gun at El Paso police, taken into custody at Bassett Place Mall today, which is not a fun thing to have thought about happening. Apparently started with a pursuit elsewhere and then ended up with the individual running into the mall. And then another police arresting a 17-year-old who pulled out a gun at Coconuts Bar and Grill in central El Paso. Now, again, usually wouldn't mention these things, but as has been further noted by our news partners earlier today, I got to say, this has been one of, these couple have been a set of now 3 different incidents involving essentially juveniles or those definitely not of the age to be able to purchase these kinds of weapons, being and having notable law enforcement efforts being done upon them after these incidents in the last couple of weeks. The Coconuts incident just before 10 a.m. Saturday morning. And again, that one I just mentioned early Monday. So it didn't start at the mall, but involved a traffic pursuit that resulted in the guy having to be detained. So those are at least notable in their own right, and still for a community rather on edge after that very serious incident and death over at the Cielo Vista Mall. Does make me wonder about what might come next or what kind of response we'll see mounted in the community. But outside of that, while we're still waiting to see none of those cases with, I think, exact other charges being filed yet. Okay, actually the one on Saturday morning, there have been charges involving aggravated robberies and holdup of a convenience store, or at the very least there were prior charges, I believe, with this person. And there was an aggravated assault that happened inside that bar. And still pending as it happened today with the guy over at Bassett Place Mall. City Council is considering a few different interesting items here. And Flaco Jimenez asking kind of one of the obvious follow-up questions. How are all these kids getting a hold of guns? Isn't that illegal? The short answer, I mean, the 18-year-old, okay, there is there are things involved. There are peculiarities of law. Let me just say, I am not a lawyer, not pretending to provide legal advice, but generally not able to be purchased at 18, but can be into possession of, usually within like the presence of a parent or guardian. And have not seen that mentioned as part of that particular story. But then also, the 17-year-old, that's just that's pretty well right out. Richard DeMille also chiming in over on the Facebook. Don't these juvenile delinquents know that they're breaking sensible gun laws? I mean, sure, there's a lot of commentary. Sean Gardner chiming in there as well, saying proof about these laws. And again, there's some further conversation I feel probably will be necessary there about, okay, how did this happen and what could be done to prevent it? Because someone running around with this, I mean, I know Flacco Menace was being, I'm assuming more than a little bit of sarcastic coming out with this and some of these statements. So yes, I know it doesn't always come through text, so sometimes I got to get a flat reading, but let's just say I have my assumptions. But in any case, I mean, that's why I'm saying maybe or maybe not further action. We don't, I mean, these incidents having either opened the weekend or today, these couple I just mentioned. So we'll see. I mean, as in always these cases, I advise caution and wanting to get the full amount of facts as possible, because knee-jerk often ends up being, it's never put forth as a good phrase, is it? Oh yeah, my knee-jerk reaction was spot on, or my well-orchestrated knee-jerk reaction. It's usually mildly pejorative, let's just put it that way. So waiting to see more information, see what the actual end up charges being, and any more from, say, the arrest affidavits from police. So checking on those as more information comes out, I will definitely say. But so what I want to mention, at least briefly here before we end up getting into what is coming next from City Council, not exactly on these circumstances, but on, well, other discussion items, including very specifically, and one thing that I don't think we've appropriately addressed whenever it comes to Title 42, of course, that being the Trump-era pandemic-related policy on immigration that was more or less formulated as a, if entering the country illegally, remove them from the country. Richard DeMille saying, don't knee-jerk too much, you'll need glasses. We just said go blind back in my day. Anyway, Title 42, of course, was parts of the reason, or the issues surrounding it, part of the reason that we still continuously, part of the detour I had to take last night, actually, in order to get around the down power line on I-10, was ended up taking border highway and Paisano kind of area, and definitely we're still seeing the DPS and Texas Military Department vehicles still down there by the actual, kind of on the under part of the, was it like 100-foot flying overpass that is part of the border highway west expansion. Not quite saying that phrase right, but that area we're talking about that kind of goes over the rail yards and technically over the border fence, but I mean still on the U.S. side, just the columns and supports definitely are in a different area. That soft bank of the Rio Grande, the part I'm talking about, definitely saw quite the amount of vehicles, if not personnel at the moment, or at the very least not personnel walking around there. That, of course, all of that kind of culminating recently with that date in December with the expected end of Title 42. But then the stay on that happened. There was still quite the kerfuffle and response involved with it, with enforcement, with the local response here. And we're, I mean, still seeing numbers significantly lower, but not exactly entirely eclipsed when it comes to, again, the one I've always referenced to, the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, showing for the last full calendar week about 1,400 migrant releases in the El Paso community. But it looks like, if I'm seeing this correctly, we're already at just under 1,000 for this week, as we are just getting rolling with it. So let's just say we have seen kind of a sharp drop off when it comes to the amount of encounters and those in custody, but we have been seeing a mild rebound, a slight upward slope, let's just put it that way. And so there's another date to be mentioned that both City Council and kind of the country overall, as those Title 42 arguments before the Supreme Court ended up being canceled, but the reason they were canceled is not something I think we've delved into quite enough or really explicitly stated. So tell you what, we've got to take that next break right now before I fully launch into that. Let's go ahead and take that break and come back after this and talk about what the situation, what that new date in May we are looking at to potentially be another one of those kind of inflection points in our region, as well as what City Council is considering both on this and then on things like the city manager contract. All of that and more after this next break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines a little bit later, as we do. Comments going on pretty continuously, of course, and all the things that we do here to talk about the things affecting us in the borderland after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. School was closed today in the Sonelli School District due to weather. Yesterday's high winds caused difficult road conditions and severe electrical power outages throughout the small school district. Officials say these conditions have affected the optimal learning conditions of the students as one of the reasons for the closure. Instead, school administrators used the day to inspect the buildings to make sure that they're safe. And an 18-year-old man accused of pointing a gun at an El Paso police officer is now in custody after an incident at Bassett Place today. Police say an officer tried to stop an SUV near Railroad and McCombs in northeast El Paso for a traffic violation. The man reportedly pointed a gun at the officer and took off. A pursuit started and the man was involved in a collision near Geronimo and Montana. The man then ran toward the shopping mall and was apprehended by an officer at one of the main doors of the mall on the north side facing Montana. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A police incident has shut down Alameda Avenue east and westbound at Yarborough. Northbound traffic on Yarborough and Alameda is closed. Southbound traffic on Yarborough and Alameda is open. Police are asking folks to avoid the area. Try North Loop Drive as your alternate. Slow traffic on eastbound Montana, Yarborough out to Zaragoza with 10-minute delays. And an accident reported Rushing Drive just south of Trans Mountain. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Nicer weather for a Monday. It's going to be chilly for sure to start, so you want the coat or jacket if you're heading out in the morning. By this afternoon, breezy conditions, low 60s. The blue skies will be back. We'll see breezy to windy conditions for our Tuesday, high around 69 degrees, with some gustier winds getting back into forecast by Wednesday, high 71. From the CBS 4 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. Want to save 50% on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters with free shipping and prices less than big box retailers. And right now, save 50% off any order during Blindster's extended President's Day sale. Hurry, sale ends March 1st. Blindster.com.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Josh, quote, "After walking around my whole life being a mouth breather, I was excited to try Navage. I read the directions carefully, pressed the button, and oh my gosh, what a sensation. So much mucus, so much crud, but oh sweet, merciful air, I can finally breathe you through my nose. Never have I ever taken such an amazing breath in my life. This is a life changer," unquote. He's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
I'm Ben Ferguson.
And I'm Ted Cruz. Why did Biden go to Kiev and not Ohio? Why did the press lie about his fake photo op?
We're going to answer those questions on Verdict with Ted Cruz. So download Verdict with Ted Cruz wherever you get your podcasts now.
This report is sponsored by The Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, including more recently Sean Gardner, Angel Rueda, Calvin Williams, and more. So I appreciate the likes and reacts that come along with that. Helps with all those algorithmic things as we continue our mission to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland. And number of them we're delving into here for you today. Start of the week, a lot of stuff going on, including More details about, at least, no, not more than we already talked about, but about those incidents. The 3 in the last few weeks here involving those definitely underage or unable to purchase such firearms being issues in the community. And Richard Janicek saying raising the age to 21 will not 16-year-olds from getting guns. So, okay, that's an argument that's been going on. That one comes largely out of, I have to say, Uvalde and the Robb Elementary shooting there, because that involved a long arm. So, at the very least, in the state of Texas and under federal law right now, yes, an 18-year-old is able to purchase something like that. But the few that we're talking about here, including going back to the Cielo Vista Mall shooting, which is, again, resulting in murder charges, among many, many other things in the outcome of that, is that, sure, that's long guns. We're talking about 18, but 21 is already the age federally for what it takes to buy handguns, because they are considered of different categories there. So in these cases that we're talking about, and that's why I'm saying, even though we're talking about someone who is illegally of the age of majority 18, at least what's been reported by police so far, in that incident that ended up at Bassett Mall, or kind of ending there anyway, after involving a police chase and both those details that just came out during our news update right there during the bottom of the hour, that should not have been able to either, again, purchase it or technically possess it, though things get a little bit fiddly there, including presence of, legal guardian, stuff like that. But I'm just going to say that anytime you're talking about like commission of a crime, that kind of goes by the wayside. So that's, at least, I know that, again, those lines have been coming up. There's been quite a lot of back and forth, particularly before this legislative session, when it comes to the idea of that. And just a note on what kind of Governor Greg Abbott said most related to this, at least in my mind, when it comes out of the State of the State address, because he was talking about Texas, was about increasing penalties, including, thousands of dollars, 10 years, those kind of order of magnitude type of penalties for those found in possession or committing crimes where they were not allowed to. So kind of upping the ante when it comes to the enforcement of that here, though the idea of like how it came about in the first place is, particularly in these incidents we're talking about, how they came into be possession of them, is one of those more interesting questions to me at the moment. I'll say that. But speaking of interesting questions and what may or may not be coming, a few interesting items that we've discussed, at least in part, when it comes to the city of El Paso and some action coming from city council as of this week. They are, let me see here, I think still technically in progress on the city council work session today. And okay, now it's wrapped up. It was still going at the start of our show here today, so the minutes and video not available just yet. But tomorrow is the full city council meeting. If you're confused about the difference, one is like the study session, so we can speak, and then maybe this is the way I think about it, and harkening back to the nightmares I still have of occasionally being in high school. The work session is the study session, and city council, the actual meeting, is the final exam, when all the big questions and the oral examination takes place. So tomorrow, 9 a.m., city council chambers is when some important items will be on there, including one we have kind of mentioned here, item 23, discussion and action on the employment agreement between the city of El Paso and the city manager. Now, some more context has been added. El Paso Matters. There's been a lot of conversation I've been privy to on this over the weekend, among other things. But El Paso Matters putting forth interesting article title here: City reps called to review Tommy Gonzalez's contract months ahead of schedule. Now, it is, of course, notable that we had in the last year, and technically even before there, but particularly last year, there was quite the set of verbal kerfuffles over the city manager's contract extension, his potential departure from the area, stuff like that going on. That saw, among other things, one of the first instances of Mayor Oscar Leeser's, in this term of office, use of the veto. Technically, I think it was the second one, but at least initially, because the first one had happened involving a certificate of obligation bonds, but it's getting a little bit far afield. It is, I think, prudent to point out that the city manager does have his review of performance evaluations happening every year. It's one of the reasons that we have seen his compensation reach the level it has, starting in the high $200,000 range to now being capped at that $450,000 each year that is a part of it. And so El Paso Matters does note that, City Reps Brian Kennedy and Joe Molinar are the co-signers on the item calling for that, again, quote, discussion and action on the city manager's employment agreement. And so, he's currently making $431,000 a year. So there's not a whole lot of other context that's provided in the immediate items, actually. because all the actually attached to the agenda just says, I think I've quoted this last week, but just to reiterate, the discussion and action to direct the city manager. Sorry, that's the wrong one that we'll talk about here in a minute. Discussion of what is this basically referring to the previous action that has happened back in August, I do believe. Discussion and action on the employment agreement between the city of El Paso and the city manager. So it doesn't leave a lot of context there for it, but again, based on just the conversations I had and what we brought you on air, particularly with one of the newer members of City Council, of course, Brian Kennedy for City Council District number 1, if I'm not mistaken on my numbers there, that this is something that's essentially the city manager form of government was not exactly on the ballot, but was a subtext in just a whole lot of ways. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes out of this. It's not listed to be a solely executive session item. Things about contracts, negotiations, legal issues often get slotted straight into there, though I would strongly expect that this would go pretty quickly into executive session. Nothing against any of the people or representatives involved in this discussion. Just that's my expectation about that, how this would very likely go. And just confirm, District 1 is what Brian Kennedy now holds after winning that runoff election back late last year. But there are a couple other items that involving the city manager that we at least kind of mentioned last year, and I wanted to delve into a little bit more. The couple other agenda items that I'm referring to here are going to be particularly items 19 and 20 that asking the city manager to provide information of any steps the city of El Paso has taken in preparation for the upcoming migrant surge as a result of the end of the national emergency and public health emergency declarations on May 11th, 2023. Remember that date, May 11th of this year. And then in between the two items, 19 and 20 respectively, 19 says related to the COVID-19 pandemic to include potential financial impact that will have on the city of El Paso. And then on 20, specifically for neighborhoods and businesses near the border and to protect drivers from migrants/pedestrians crossing the border highway. Now, in the background of these items is actually a number of articles and otherwise local reporting that we've discussed locally that is a part of this here, including the circumstances that happened of people, say, either scaling or crawling through parts of the border fence, particularly near the border highway, the passages into people's backyards, and large amounts of discarded items, among other things, that can be seen. And that's all. I mean, I'm happy to have that considered ahead of time as opposed to being solely responsive, but really that date is what I want to mention because just reviewing our coverage we've done so far, don't think we've talked about that enough. What we had mentioned is that, yes, the U.S. Supreme Court had canceled the arguments over Title 42, but that's specifically because, and this is where I think we were deficient, is saying that the essentially government attorneys are arguing that the point is going to be moot as of that May 11th date, because that is when they are saying that they are going to be completely deauthorizing the pandemic-related restrictions as part of it. So with them no longer having, again, the justification past that point, the Title 42 would not even just have a should it be in place, should it not, is it justifiable or is it not, but the underpinning that has been put into place will be entirely removed. So with that date now pretty firmly in mind and firmly in hand, again, even the city of El Paso considering it, wondering, okay, what steps to be taken, what can we expect? I mean, literally laid out there as expecting there to be a migrant surge coming out of it. And the items in this case, I do believe being put forth by City Rep Henry Rivera, District number 7, and saying that it does affect all districts there. So him being the one putting this on the agenda, probably a prudent discussion to be had, as we saw, again, just all the progression that came out of that late last year when we did see the disaster declaration for the city of El Paso, calling in for the support that is, again, still present, as was seen by my own eyes as of last night, at the very least, when it comes to the, again, DPS, the enforcement that continues with that. And we've talked more than a bit about the particular, state troopers, DPS enforcement that has happened in and around our region as ongoing, particularly, the rabbiting situation, as I put it, the shorthand for the passenger vehicle smuggling that happens, that once presented with law enforcement ends up with them flooring it. And it does seem like, at least the incidents we end up hearing about more often than not, ending up in a ditched vehicle or a crash into something. That largely has seemed to have been DPS enforcement, often in conjunction with, say, well, federal authorities, ICE, CBP, Border Patrol, etc., and even then local ones, including, of course, El Paso Police. But getting ahead of this and preparing for it, probably a good thing, because, I mean, those rabbiting situations I'm talking about have been what has been going on decently consistently. I'm not willing to say quite constantly, but it seems to have come up at least a couple of times a week since, and even frankly before that December date last year, when we saw or had the anticipated end of Title 42 and what was the high water mark that we hit in our area? 10,000 community releases in our area, and we're ramping up well before that point. So, yeah, I'm going to say talking about this and seeing if there can be a more coordinated response. I mean, hindsight is usually 2020, but this is also continuing to change and move. A couple of the, of course, policies that come to mind that are now in place involve all of the whole CBP One app, still technically primarily in place for those populations originating from, of course, those four main nations of Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. But with also being there's new policies being put forth, at least the possible implementation of them, I think around that May timeframe as well, of no longer allowing there to be the illegal entry as part of a asylum seeker's process. We're essentially looking at an expansion of it then, and therefore a lot more use of that app, and therefore I would have to say maybe more of these smuggling situations, but it's technically only a time will tell. Cloudy crystal ball, my magic 8 ball hasn't given me a right answer ever since I got it, so we'll have to see on that. And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break now and do what we usually do at this point during the program, which is opening up those phone lines. So if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents on these issues or all the other things affecting us here in the borderland. Again, Friday is what it is, but during the rest of the week, we talk about what's going on or what affects us right here. We have those phone lines open now, and that number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police still have Alameda Avenue shut down in both directions at Yarborough. Northbound traffic on Yarborough and Alameda is also closed. Avoid the area. Take North Loop Drive or North Carolina as your alternates. I-10 westbound at the Patriot. The right interchange ramp at the 54 is blocked due to congestion. And slow traffic, Montana Avenue eastbound, McRae out to Zaragoza, 12-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. Want to save 50% on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters with free shipping and prices less than big box retailers. And right now, save 50% off any order during Blindster's extended President's Day sale. Hurry, sale ends March 1st. Blindster.com.
This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
How a busy baker beat back foot pain. Meet Sanja. Brownies, cupcakes, cookies. I love to bake. There have been times when I've been on my feet for at least 12 hours. And that's how things went from sweet to sour. I had excruciating pain in both feet to a point where I had to limp out of the kitchen. So she called up a former foot pain sufferer, her big sister. She told me, you need to go to the Good Feet store and get some arch supports. Smart lady. It was an awesome experience. Scott took great care of my feet. He's the arch support specialist who fitted her. He was very patient, very knowledgeable. Scott was the man. Now Sandra can have her cake and bake it too.
Oh, yeah. My feet are very happy now.
You're going to have to make some cookies for Scott.
I've already done that.
Of course you did. See how arch supports work for you. Stop in or schedule your free fitting at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
I'm Ben Ferguson.
And I'm Ted Cruz. Why did Biden go to Kiev and not Ohio? Why did the press lie about his fake photo op?
We're going to answer those questions on Verdict with Ted Cruz. So download Verdict with Ted Cruz wherever you get your podcasts now.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
What does the sound of a school bell bring to mind? Homeroom, lunchtime, the day's end, or the end of school entirely, as in kids dropping out? At Communities in Schools, we work directly inside schools to help those students whose ability to come to school is often jeopardized by hardships, the loss of a loved one, poverty, lack of housing, or bullying. Hear from a few students whose lives we have touched.
They've always had my back. They've always done anything to help me.
At Communities in Schools, we empower students to succeed in and out of the classroom.
They've been there for when I've had any questions, any problems personally. Anytime I needed support, they were there.
Our mission is to ensure that at-risk kids have someone by their side.
It means a lot to me to graduate. It's just a big accomplishment.
Communities in Schools never gave up on me. They told me I can do it, and I did it.
Communities in Schools. We're in schools to help kids stay in school. See how we help all students succeed at communitiesinschools.org.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in. However you may be doing so, a lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. We do have that phone line open now, so if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents via that method. That phone number is, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in as well. Those dropping those likes and reacts we do appreciate, including Sean Gardner, Angel Rueda, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Marky Mendango, Robert Haynes, and just one other. It doesn't show me the full list sometimes. Annoying. But anyway, I appreciate we still see you and appreciate it as it helps with all of those algorithmic things as we get into the issues that affect us here in the borderland. So this one's a little bit further afield, but another one that we've kind of we've had a lot going on in this community. Haven't quite got to as explicitly as much here, but certainly a probably pretty important one. That of what U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez said in an interview recently involving what is going on with the border and border security, immigration, those kind of things, and essentially calling out not even necessarily just his own party, but okay, maybe not exactly by name, but some specific persons also within the Republican Party. So, of course, Tony Gonzalez, not to be confused with the city manager of very similar, even actual just initials there. But Tony Gonzalez, speaking with the Washington Examiner, as is reported on here by the Texas Tribune, that fellow Republicans benefit politically from a sustained border crisis. Now, this is not exactly what we've talked about previously, but I've definitely brought it up. The concept that a good crisis is hard to beat. Because what happens when you have something in a prolonged issue kind of state is, well, you got to keep putting money, funding, etc. up to fix it there, don't you? And you also, of course, have to keep people in place in order for them to deal with it, solve it, or potentially solve it anyway, because I can't count the amount of times. It feels like one kind of those exercise of counting how many laws there are in the U.S. Probably it's harder than you would think of. How many times has someone said, oh, we didn't quite get to that solution here in a different way, not exactly the same issue. You could kind of see it with the let's say also came up in the news updates here today, the student loan forgiveness possibility, potential, etc., whatever. Of course, the White House saying, spokesperson for anyway, saying that they do have the legal authority, but we'll see what the Supreme Court says, kind of in short. But that's, they didn't quite get it in place for the 2022 election, did they? Ah, shoot. Well, you better make sure to vote for us so that we'll be able to complete that kind of a thing. That type of reasoning, you can see quite a lot come up. Unfortunately, Flacco Jimenez saying it was a great tight end. Didn't see him in those circumstances, but mostly talked with him since he's been, the conversations I've had with him anyway, since he has been in elected office for the Texas 23rd Congressional District, which does include a increasing part of our listening area, by the way, if you're at all unfamiliar, wondering why he was on your ballot this most recent time around, because I'm positive y'all went out and voted, right? Anyway, didn't exactly call him out by name, but kind of called out U.S. Representative Chip Roy, particularly in a tweet that Gonzalez has set, saying, quote, anyone who thinks a 3-page anti-immigration bill with a 0% chance of getting signed into law is going to solve the border crisis should be buying beachfront property in AZ, referring to Arizona there. So, and of course, Roy, who has been coming up a lot more than I ever really expected him to for being not our area congressperson, but keeps being involved in issues, including the speaker and what have you, did put that, the Border Safety and Security Act in order to put some things forward. But yeah, given the kind of bipartisan and split nature of Congress right now, so not bipartisan, the opposite, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to, I got to say, I find that kind of reasoning about, is this actually going to work? Is it reasonable to expect that this would be able to move forward? Is kind of persuasive. Because sure, if you're just going to say, oh, we tried our hardest without looking at like, okay, but what are actual solutions? I got to say, I kind of like the idea of finding solutions when it comes to this. Now, when it comes to our discussion of it, sure, we are tending to delve into the possibilities. We get a lot of interesting suggestions, but we really do want it that our lawmakers are more focused on it, or at the very least I do. So if you find that to be important for yourself, this might be an interesting one for you to look at. The article title there, again, from Texas Tribune, Texas border Republican accuses GOP of using immigration crisis for politics. But we'll have to talk more about that and the other things going on here in the area after this next break. Already due for that top of the hour break. So remember, if you want to get on that phone line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police still have Alameda Avenue shut down in both directions at Yarborough. Northbound traffic on Yarborough and Alameda is also closed. Avoid the area. Take North Loop Drive or North Carolina as your alternates. I-10 westbound at the Patriot. The right interchange ramp at the 54 is blocked due to congestion. And slow traffic, Montana Avenue eastbound, McRae out to Zaragoza, 12-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, Sean Hannity here from my friends at Lone Star Transfer. If you felt like booking your timeshare was difficult in the past, you know it's recently been almost impossible. Now, most clients are shocked to learn that their timeshare is now available to the public, and that severely limits booking options. Now, many owners have also reached out, and they're upset that their yearly dues have nearly doubled during the maintenance fee season. Now, for well over a decade, our friends at Lone Star Transfer, a family-owned company, they have had the pleasure of helping thousands and thousands of people legally and permanently get out of their never-ending timeshare fees. Now, Lone Star Transfer guarantees the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call my good friends for a free, no-obligation consultation. Write this down. Call today, 833-594-0075. 833-594-0075. They're online at LoneStarTransfer.com.
Veterans, are you planning to file a VA disability claim? Get ready for a better way to file. The Decision Ready Claim Program gets you a decision within 30 days after it's submitted. That's just 30 days for the benefits and services you've earned. Talk to your accredited representative or go to www.benefits.va.gov/DRC to learn more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
Stay informed at News on the Hour and a Half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Millions in the Midwest and the Northeast are set to deal with another winter storm. A snow alert is going into effect across New York, and Department of Sanitation Commissioner Jessica Tisch says they'll be ready to roll, stocked with some 700 million pounds of salt.
New Yorkers may have gotten out of the habit of dealing with snow this winter, but the sanitation department hasn't. We are fully prepared.
It's a part of the same system that smacked California with snow and blizzard conditions in some areas. The House Select Committee on China will hold its first hearing Tuesday amid rising tensions between Washington and Beijing. The newly formed panel will hear testimony from former President Trump's National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, former Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger, and others. The hearing comes amid fallout over the Chinese surveillance balloon that flew across the U.S. and concerns China could send lethal aid to Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is doing well as he recovers from clinical depression. Aides for Fetterman say the Democrat remains on a path to recovery. The freshman congressman checked himself into the hospital earlier this month to seek treatment. Top economists are divided on where the U.S. economy is heading this year as inflation remains high and job growth stays robust. Lisa Taylor reports.
The latest National Association for Business Economics survey shows a significant divergence among respondents on the outlook of the economy. However, a majority of economists surveyed believe there will be a recession this year. Nearly 60% of survey panelists said they believe the chance of a recession in the next 12 months is more than 50%. Inflation is expected to stay above the Federal Reserve's target rate of 2%, although economists expect inflation to slow over the course of 2023 and 2024.
Lisa Taylor reporting. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Republican Senator Rand Paul says the Biden administration should declassify documents suggesting COVID-19 came from a Chinese lab. Multiple reports citing classified intelligence say the Department of Energy concluded with low confidence the pandemic was likely due to a lab leak in Wuhan, China. The UK and the European Union have reached a new deal on post-Brexit trading arrangements for Northern Ireland. In London, Ollie Barrett talks about what's next for the Prime Minister.
Rishi Sunak now has to try and sell the deal to politicians in his own Conservative Party and to those in Northern Ireland, particularly the Unionist Party, the DUP. It's been refusing to take part in power-sharing government in Belfast because of the protocol, which it said undermined Northern Ireland's ties with the rest of the UK. London and Brussels hope the new deal will herald a new era in relations between the UK and EU.
A number of employers are taking an alternative approach to managing their workforces, cutting staff without firing them. Erin Real reports.
Return to office policies, relocation across the country, reorganizing teams, and requiring employees to report to new bosses can all prompt staff to look for jobs elsewhere. Walt Disney said it's requiring employees to be in the office 4 days a week starting in March, while Amazon wants their staff back in the office at least 3 days starting in May. Tyson Foods announced that they were closing their Chicago office and moving everyone to Arkansas. More than 90% of the employees in Tyson's Chicago office declined to relocate. Companies might feel reluctant to admit that they hired too quickly during the pandemic, or they incorrectly forecast growth and they're now looking to course correct.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is set to star in his first TV series ever for Netflix. The former California governor will be the lead in the upcoming comedy action series called FUBAR. It debuts on Netflix on May 25th. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
His children's book sold over 600 million copies, but his life was no fairy tale. We'll have the story of Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all.
iHeartRadio.
Access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Ryan Seacrest. I go by the name of Charlamagne the God.
Hi, I'm Ellen K.
Bobby Bones here. Hola, soy Enrique Santos.
Access to all of the best free curated playlists.
My favorite music.
The best songs.
A little bit of everything.
Access to all of the great podcasts for every interest.
The Stuff You Should Know podcast.
The Daily Show podcast. The Herd with Colin Cowherd. And best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, which is also some of the places, particularly the Andrew J. Polk ones, where you can find some of our other programming. Flacco Jimenez mentioning a little bit earlier that this past Saturday's history show was especially very interesting. If you all aren't tuning in, you're really missing out. I appreciate the kind of chat out there. Of course, the El Paso History Radio Show. I mentioned it on like Fridays as we're finishing up with this program because it's a different focus, a different kind of thing. But this past weekend, it does air 10 to noon Saturdays here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We focused on, kind of in deference to Black History Month, the Buffalo Soldiers and similar types of service occurring in our area, and many contributions, of course, that can be seen through here until today, including the more recent renaming that we saw of the Buffalo Soldier Gate, and then also the civilian side Buffalo Soldier Road over there near Fort Bliss, or at least that side of it. Anyway, and Richard Janicek saying, love watching El Paso history on YouTube when he lives in Texarkana. We, of course, have those episodes along with these up there, so even if you missed us live, or you ever miss us live, or when the airing is happening, you can still catch up with it. I would say for those of you who aren't on Facebook, that's probably one of the better ways you can do it because, of course, YouTube is a little bit more login neutral. So Facebook, if you're logged in there, yeah, Facebook works great. But if you don't have that or don't want to be logged in, that's one of the better ways. And one of the reasons we're up in those ways. And let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And just staying for Richard there chiming in, careful what you wish for. Anyway, we do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I heard you mention Congressman Gonzalez, and this isn't why I'm calling today, but I'm just going to add to that. I was reading an article that the New York Times wrote on, remember I've been calling in and saying that the children are being found working under these unaccompanied minors being found in specific industries working overnight and all that stuff. Well, in their report, and I've always said, where are the 45,000 missing children? Well, according to their report, now they are 85,000 missing children overall. And I don't hear anybody concerned about them, but they're finding that these minor children are working in Fortune 500 companies. And the other article I read, they refer to that as the Biden administration creating an uneducated underclass of migrants. This article refers to these children as the new economy of exploitation of these minor children. So it's increasing. And in addition to that, they said that the total unaccompanied minors are 320,000, and roughly 200,000 of them will end up working full time. That's pretty sad, but the Biden administration doesn't seem to be concerned about our children, our children, our children. Oh, I forgot. That's Nancy Pelosi. But what I was really calling about is the climate charter that the city's proposing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was I read El Paso Times article on the study that the Chamber of Commerce did. It's amazing how as soon as we start asking questions or this article came out, people are called fearmongers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, how is being concerned about our city, our future, and billions of dollars that we don't have called fear-mongering? And it's amazing that two of the paragraphs, Andrew, stated, and I'm quoting here, that the aim is to reduce track emissions. Is that the railroad that goes through town? They want to direct investment toward renewable energy and require city government to create climate-related jobs. I didn't know that government created jobs. And if they're referring to private sector creating climate-related jobs, how can they force an industry to create jobs if they're not? This isn't their forte. And then they want to ban the sale or transfer of city-owned water for fossil fuel industry activities outside city limits. Is that something that maybe the people of El Paso would want to vote on and not just the city council arbitrarily have a vote on it? I mean, there are so many things going here. And then get a load of this. They want to convert El Paso Electric into a city-owned utility.
Right.
It's like that one, my eyes just popped out into how incredible that the city feels they have the talent to run an electric company, an electric grid, just unimaginable. And then the chamber discussed about San Antonio, who apparently has the most aggressive climate change agenda for the city. And they have only added 58 jobs in a year under their climate agenda. So I went into their website to see exactly what types of jobs they have. They have Caterpillar, Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, Toyota, GM, Johnson Controls, GE, Tesla, 3M, Sherwin, Nike, and it goes on and on and on. And those that I just mentioned, that's over 16,000 jobs in manufacturing in San Antonio. If a city like San Antonio can only place and create, they didn't even create them, 58 jobs with the type of industry that they have there, El Paso can't even match it. And then they questioned, and I questioned, this is terrible. They're saying that we have 330 people employed in El Paso, and 51% of them will lose their jobs. And the city will lose $8 billion in workers' earnings between now and 2030, which is the goal for the city of El Paso. I mean, this is something that we need to get started early on it. I know they said I think they were going to have the propositions not as a group, but rather separately. We need to educate El Paso because a lot of people work and they don't have time to do research and be informed when they go to the polls. We understand that. But somehow we need to coalesce against this monstrosity of billions of dollars that we don't have and educate people. I finally did get a response from my city councilman today. And I did impress on them that it's my opinion that he has to have many town hall meetings. And I would encourage everybody to call their council person and encourage them to have town hall meetings on the effect of this, because this isn't that we can something we can go to the polls and not know anything about and vote in favor of it. Because I think if people are informed, they're not going to go for this. I mean, it's 2030. I mean, the goals here are just incredible. But the biggest thing is they don't want us asking questions on a proposition that the article says passed with the slimmest majority of the three propositions last May. That ought to tell the public something. The slimmest majority, it barely made it. And they're wanting to expand it. They want to create, I don't know, different departments, mandate climate jobs, lots of things that they don't have the authority to do. So that was, I was thinking it was going to be discussion at city council today, and I was going to go to, tomorrow, attend the meeting, but it's not. I looked at their agenda, and we just somehow need to get the word out there. And I hope that the city council do their due diligence. I hope they respect their constituents enough to go out there and tell the city of El Paso, the voters, exactly what this is going to do to our city. Because, in my opinion, a lot of the signatures that I was told were obtained at the food banks. So this needs to be taken seriously, because I know I sign petitions, but I always know what the petition is about.
Oh, sure.
And like I said, a lot of people don't have the time to be informed. And you go out there to the food banks, to these other places, and ask them to sign a petition. They're going to sign the petition, which I think is unethical, but that's my opinion. So I hope everybody calls their city council person and asks that they have town halls from now until May, because this just cannot pass. That's my opinion.
So yeah, you're talking about, in case anyone's confused about this, because we talked about stuff that has both already been passed and that is set to pass here. So I think you're talking primarily about what is coming up, and the information is out now. I don't think it's actually fully okay. There's not like a lot of details on it yet, but they have now over on the epcountyvotes.com website switched over to the May 2023 uniform election, in which there are going to be this handful of primarily City of El Paso charter amendments on there. There might be a smattering of other things if you want to look for that. But the one you're talking about there is that, again, charter amendments and all the things that come with it. So that's part of what you're talking about and what you're referring to there when it comes to that El Paso Chamber of Commerce study that has been out. I've not been able to find the full copy of it. I might have to reach out to them directly, because I'd love to be able to delve into that. So that may also be just a hint as a future topic on the show here. But then the other one you're talking about what did pass, that was in the most recent election, November, and that was of the City of El Paso bond election, item C, I believe you're talking about there, the Proposition C, the issuance of $5.2 million of general obligation bonds for renewable energy and resource use efficiency improvements and planning, and the imposition of a tax sufficient to pay for the principal and interest on the bonds, etc. So legalese at the end there. I mean, sure, but so that's the part that's in place, that we have that new sustainability officer that exists under the City of El Paso, that as of last check, we're going to see recommendations within like 12 to 18 months. So we'll see what comes out of that. But I'd say that the part you're kind of doing more the call of action on would be then what is coming up in May, then it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely, because they've already created an office, and what they're proposing here is more offices. I mean, seriously, one on top of the other. The left hand isn't going to know what the right hand is doing. That's just made for confusion and disaster. And I even question the climate person that they appointed. Where did they get and I need to ask these questions to my councilman. What qualifications do they have to run this and all that stuff? We don't know what. They're just appointing people, and they're not telling us in-depth knowledge about climate change. Has she even read a book? Has anybody read a book on what climate change actually is and how you calculate climate change? And so those things are important. Now that you remind me, I need to call my councilman again.
I mean,
okay,
sure, I will always support people reaching out to their elected officials and airing their grievances and letting them know what their important things to them are, because that's literally how this is supposed to work. So I don't know how that one works out for you.
I will. I'll keep you updated.
All right. Well, thanks very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
One other thing that comes to mind here as we're getting close to the needing to take that next break right now is that, particularly on the creation of jobs, that there's a phrase from my economic studies days of you can pull a string, but you can't push it. I mean, just think about the literal action. If you got, a loose bit of string here, sure, you can pull it along, have it kind of in a line behind it there. But if you try to push it, push all the string in front of you, it kind of doesn't work. It clumps up, it bunts up, it does not move in a smooth and orderly manner. So that is a phrase when it comes to about the incentivization of action, particularly when it comes to a free market economy. You can pull a string and offering a pull towards something, but you can't push it. You can't make it go immediately in the direction you have without providing essentially incentives. So when we talk about incentive structures, the way things are designed in order to make it more available, more possible, you have to do it in such a way that you're pulling the string and not trying to force it in a direction that it might not kind of flow otherwise. So that's a phrase that sticks with me. But let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Joe battles southbound at Zaragoza. An earlier accident's been moved to the left shoulder. In the East Valley, Memorial Highway is slow southbound from the Spur down to Montwood with 5-minute delays. Eastbound Montana slow McRae to Zaragoza with 12-minute delays. And Alameda Avenue is still closed in both directions at Yarborough due to a police incident. Try North Loop Drive as your alternate. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by The Verdict with Ted Cruz.
I'm Ben Ferguson. And I'm Ted Cruz. Why did Biden go to Kiev and not Ohio? Why did the press lie about his fake photo op?
We're going to answer those questions on Verdict with Ted Cruz. So download Verdict with Ted Cruz wherever you get your podcasts now.
Paid for by government.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 50 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-456-2466, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-456-2466. Call now, and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-456-2466 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-456-2466.
Imagine buying a pair of sneakers and getting a soothing, gentle foot massage like you'd get during a relaxing pedicure just by walking. Skechers' new Massage Fit sneakers. Because Skechers, the comfort technology company, has designed a unique innovation that makes it feel like you're pampering your feet with a gentle massage in every step. The secret is Skechers' new patented wave technology on the sole that gently massages your feet while you're walking around. Find them for men and women at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
At Staples, school is always in session. And savings never take a holiday, especially now during Staples Teacher Palooza. You save big on everything for school, like 25% on classroom decor and stickers, up to 40% on brands like Post-it, Papermate, and Elmer's. Plus, 2-ounce bottles of Purell hand sanitizer are just 49 cents. During Staples Teacher Palooza, teachers save big, and so do you with classroom deals for everybody. But deals end soon, so hurry to Staples today. Offers end 3/11. In-store only while supplies last.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms we're up on these days. Again, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. It's where it's been up the longest. Anyway, most of the comments coming in, then the Thunderdome comments definitely ends up coming in, and those dropping those likes and reacts we appreciate over there. James Holmes, Sean Gardner, Angel Rueda, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Marky Mandingo, and a couple others. Doesn't always show me the full list sometimes. That's not on y'all. That's on the way Facebook works sometimes, which is always exciting and often weird. Ida Beza Gardner and Robert Haynes, I do believe. But talking about the things, you want to add your 2 cents over there, you certainly can. We'd also have those phone lines open if you want to get on there. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Richard Lewis saying, among other things, Trans Mountain westbound traffic stalled up top, guessing an accident. don't think we have anything specifically from our news partners or from our traffic updates there just yet, but odds are I wouldn't be surprised if there may be some debris or something left over from the weekend possibly, but yeah, just stay safe out there. And so I do take reasonable criticism or actual like discussion of issues. If all you're going to be doing here is insulting people, saying, oh, you're an idiot, not even actually like addressing their arguments, you're going to find yourself removed. But I will take at least an argument, making a point, let's put it that way. Among other things, Eric McNabb saying government programs create jobs all the time. This is common sense. Again, if you're misunderstanding the part I'm saying about pushing a string versus pulling it, there are ways that you can incentivize action, but requiring it to be as a, well, you have to do it. Again, you can try, but it isn't going to work out that well. But going on further, and this is where we're getting into the, again, try not to feed the trolls that often if it's possible, saying the denial of reality of conservatives will never cease. I think he meant cease instead of seize to amaze me. And denying the undeniable that is right in front of their eyes is the product of the indoctrination of right-wing media personalities. If you want to argue a point, like, go for it, but if you can attribute all of these other things to it, because sure, the idea of government programs can create jobs, not exactly like they're creating them, but often the idea of like grants, stuff like that. So that's the difference between pushing and pulling a string. You're going to say, oh, hey, that there's this pull towards us because we've made it available to it. There's an argument. There's an entire argument out there that government, in terms of economic sense, should be there to fill in essentially the gaps of things that either can't or won't be done. Yeah, I know there's no argument about roadways and what the private sector could or could not do when it comes to that, but also to kind of fill in the gaps whenever private sector is faltering or failing, such as in times of recession. Good example of that kind of theory in action would be, you know, the umpteen three-letter agencies that existed during the Great Depression era and the kind of reconstruction coming out of that in order to provide kind of jumpstart things. Infrastructure is another decent example overall, because the idea of having something in place so that there can be utilized by free enterprise is kind of the way it's supposed to work in my mind. But Ronaldo Rey is asking, is there a way to post the callers' comments later? If you're wanting to talk about like hearing it afterwards, you can. We don't have a way to like post them directly, but they are a part of the, or at least they should be a part of the broadcast. If they're not coming through, go ahead for it. I mean, point is, you can see it as part of the broadcast. So if that's where you're at, if you want to clarify a little bit, it may not be totally clear on the question. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. A lot of crocodile tears there, I think, from Trump or Barbara. You know, Republicans historically have not been the party that favors social programs that help kids. In fact, they're trying to eviscerate the public schools right now. I think she just uses this as a whipping boy against President Biden. Crocodile tears. Now, I like the idea of, getting a piece of the action of this monopoly that we have in town called El Paso Electric that's owned by J.P. Morgan. I get Barbara for monopolies, Now, I don't think the city could afford to buy it, but what we could do is, again, every time they ask for a rate increase, we're going to say, yeah, you get it, but it goes in the name of shares, so that we start getting a piece of that action, because it's a monopoly. They make about 8% on their money. It's a moneymaker. And you know what? You can hire the management. J.P. Morgan owns it, and then hire people to run it. We can hire the same people, But again, we're not going to buy it outright anyway. It would take maybe many, many years before, the city could have a significant piece of it. About 10%. You need about 10% usually to have, kind of semi-control of the organization, and certainly have people on the board of directors, and then move that company into the area of renewable energy, and all to include methane gas, perhaps from garbage. We're never going to run out of garbage. We're never going to run out of human waste that you can turn into methane gas. And yeah, there are probably problems right now, but if we spend as much money, this country would spend as much money as they have on wars, on going to the moon, on splitting the atom, on rebuilding Europe after World War II. We can do all kinds of things. But the thing is that part of the system, economic system, isn't owned by the American people. It's owned by a very, very few groups, small percentage, 1%, 1/10 of 1%. The J.P. Morgans of the world, okay? That kind of folks. And those folks use that money to buy the politicians. And that's where the people lose out again. Because, yeah, it's supposed to be a government of the people, but it's not. It's a government of purchased politicians by plutocrats. It's always been the case. That's the way it was set up. It was set up by plutocrats who thought in their mind of capitalism allowed slavery. Their idea of capitalism allowed a genocide of native peoples so that they could steal their lands. So that's where we came from. And the reason we are where we are is because that's where we came from. They created a system where it empowered minority states that had slaves so that we have that situation where you have these people living in flyover America, very, very people, but they got enough power in the Senate that they can thwart the will of the majority of the people who live in the cities. That's where the action is, not out in the boonies, the cities, where the universities are, where the jobs are. That's always the way it's been like that for a long, long time. So these people are out there crying because they live in the boonies, but they thwart democracy. They thwart the will of the majority of the American people because of the system that was set up by a group of slavers and business people and capitalists who wanted to get rid of a king. They wanted another king, but they were going to be the little kings themselves, because everybody who owns their own business, he's kind of a little king himself. And then divide the power, all over through a federal system. So you have governors and state senators and state representatives, a lot of people with their fingers in the pie, but the capitalists in everybody's pie.
You bring up a lot of interesting ideas there, and the idea of particularly corporations being, the modern fiefdoms, and the idea of there being, watch the movie Office Space, among other things, come to mind here about people not being useful or needed at all, but they're on the books because it gives someone's power. There's the whole psychology, sociology argument to go into there, but the idea of it's having outsized power, Citizens United does come to mind here, is a way I don't think it should. I'm opposed to that particular Supreme Court decision. We'd like to see that overturned or dealt with, put into law, put into a constitutional amendment, particularly because the whole idea that corporations are people has some very disturbing implications, and not what I'm really in favor of how it's worked out within this, not even just this century, but the existence of this country. Let's just put it that way. But then on the idea of crocodile tears about not wanting child labor, I think that's a that's a hell of a line to be arguing against, if I'm getting that right here, saying that being concerned about there being, okay, among other things, some of the reporting that is out there, just looking up kind of off the hand here, this is from NBC News, Biden administration to crack down on child labor, noting that 3,800 children were found to be working at U.S. company last year in violation of labor law, and I want to say it was more than 100 companies, I think it was several hundred companies, actually, missing the exact number here as part of it, that were seen to be doing this, actually, as, again, hiring particularly, there's also, child immigrant labor, which is disturbing in its own right, but just in general, the idea of it just kind of going by the wayside, as much as we've had conversations about there being the whole, we're hiring people who don't necessarily have legal status in this country, but we're not the ones facing the enforcement, so why does it matter? We keep doing it, as a definite problem. If you're penalizing those as part of the system, but not those who have set up and are perpetuating the system, yeah, that's we'll keep sweeping up the broken glass as soon as it gets broken and not worry about why the window is getting broken kind of solution to it. So saying that that's not really a concern, or I guess I'm not quite sure what we're getting there, is a bad thing. But then on the other, you have the whole center periphery model. That usually doesn't work out that well either. The idea that only the places that have all the people should make all the decisions is, again, literally not how our system is set up. And if you want to call it the slave owners as part of that, but I also don't think that they're the ones crying about essentially the existence of the Senate seems to be what you're railing against. And the idea of it being a relic of an antiquated past, it has been updated. It has had more updates than, say, the Electoral College has had when it comes to the way they actually work out. Senators used to actually still be appointed directly by state legislators, so there was an electoral link, kind of, but not directly. We were not voting directly on senators, and therefore it was an emblem of the greater control of states. That, of course, changed with, I'll look up the amendment here in a second. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but one of the ones that happened, I want to say, in kind of the end of, just post-Civil War period. Point is that the idea of only having the majority control kind of goes against the entire idea of the system as well, which is majority control, but minority rights. because it should be, I mean, there's the whole, example of, ask two wolves and a sheep what they want to eat for dinner and them to vote on it. And they're probably going to come to a decision that the sheep doesn't like, so to speak. But to say that we don't like it, it's not working out for us, we're getting into the whole political expediency territory of, I don't like it, it's not working out for how I want right now, therefore it needs to change, as opposed to what are the ways we want things to work overall, and then figure out how to navigate within that. Because sure, if you want to deal with people you don't like, go ahead and burn down their house, and it'll deal with them, and yet you wouldn't want that policy applied to yourself now, would you? Because we have systems in place to guarantee certain rights. So to say that we can't have these because it's standing in my way, or I perceive it as standing in my way at this exact moment, and frankly, I'm surprised you're rolling against the Senate right now as it is, given that is the Democrat control that exists at this, and if it didn't exist, we would have only Republican control right now. But anyway, there's a whole lot more there than I think we'll be able to get to with any one particular show. So thanks for the point in the call and some of the, I guess, interesting ideas, but we'll have to talk further about them another point here. So let's go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will talk further about the issues affecting us here in the borderland. Again, if you want to get on that line and add your 2 cents, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. School was closed today in the Sonelli School District due to weather. Yesterday's high winds caused difficult road conditions and severe electrical power outages throughout the small school district. Officials say these conditions have affected the optimal learning conditions of the students as one of the reasons for the closure. Instead, school administrators used the day to inspect the buildings to make sure that they're safe. And an 18-year-old man accused of pointing a gun at an El Paso police officer is now in custody after an incident at Bassett Place today. Police say an officer tried to stop an SUV near Railroad and McCombs in northeast El Paso for a traffic violation. The man reportedly pointed a gun at the officer and took off. A pursuit started and the man was involved in a collision near Geronimo and Montana. The man then ran toward the shopping mall and was apprehended by an officer at one of the main doors of the mall on the north side facing Montana. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
All lanes are back open on Alameda Avenue, east and westbound at Yarborough, due to a police incident that closed Alameda for part of the afternoon. Stop-and-go traffic on Global Reach southbound with 30-minute delays from the Spur down to Montana. And I-10 eastbound at Piedras, an accident reported. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Nicer weather for a Monday. It's going to be chilly for sure to start, so you want the coat or jacket if you're heading out in the morning. By this afternoon, breezy conditions, low 60s. The blue skies will be back. We'll see breezy to windy conditions for our Tuesday, high around 69 degrees, with some gustier winds getting back into forecast by Wednesday, high 71. From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Printed Marketing Services help small business print big. Now get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Offer ends 4/15. Visit staples.com/printbig for details. This is your sign to try Staples, where your prints are perfect guaranteed.
This is Ronnie Lowenfield, Casa Buick GMC. Listen to this.
February may be the shortest month of the year, but Casa Buick GMC has the longest list of savings with the most complete inventory of the year. The 100% sales tax offer continues after record-breaking sales in January. It's on every new Casa Buick GMC SUV and truck. 2022 GMC Sierra Elevation, $49,790 after all tax savings and Casa discounts. 2022 GMC Terrain, $34,965. 2022 Buick Encore, $25,910. GMC, we are professional grade. Only at Casa Buick GMC.
Home of the nice guys, yeah!
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
His children's book sold over 600 million copies, but but his life was no fairy tale. We'll have the story of Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students.
We see say for each other.
I see say because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
What does the sound of a school bell bring to mind? Homeroom, lunchtime, the day's end, or the end of school entirely, as in kids dropping out? At Communities in Schools, we work directly inside schools to help those students whose ability to come to school is often jeopardized by hardships, the loss of a loved one, poverty, lack of housing, or bullying. Hear from a few students whose lives we have touched.
They've always had my back. They've always done anything to help me.
At Communities in Schools, we empower students to succeed in and out of the classroom.
They've been there for when I've had any questions, any problems personally. Anytime I needed support, they were there.
Our mission is to ensure that at-risk kids have someone by their side.
It means a lot to me to graduate. It's just a big accomplishment.
Communities in Schools never gave up on me. They told me I can do it, and I did it.
Communities in Schools. We're in schools to help kids stay in school. See how we help all students succeed at communitiesinschools.org.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days. Again, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. I don't think we're having issues with the phone lines right now, but if anyone was trying to call in, again, the number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Either we are having issues or we've had some people with bad signal and getting disconnected there. Haven't hit anything wrong, but again, so if you want to try for it, again, the number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So make sure you get their 915 in front of there. Should be able to take calls. If not, I wonder if we're having secondary impacts from those wins again ourselves here, but we'll continue. I still got the comments coming in over online. Appreciate those people chiming in and liking over there, including, of course, James Radcliffe, who was having an interesting moment there, saying that actually agree with Raul about this when it comes to the at least increasing public ownership of the El Paso Electric. And, well, that wasn't fully on board with it, let's just say, with some of the other comments there. But the idea of public ownership, or at least a goal towards it. Okay, let me just say this. Would not be totally in favor of public running of the utility, because there are certain things that just need to continue to work with that. But the idea of the city of El Paso having a stake in it as like an investor, and therefore having an increased amount of control, I'm not totally opposed to exploring the idea of it, but it just being 100% public run as it is. I mean, there aren't any other options that exist to it in our area here. Is having it has issues for me. Let's just put it that way here. And otherwise, very happy to apparently announced My new title as given to me by Eric McNabb, that I'm the face of economic interests of corporation and the rich in El Paso. Wow, I didn't know I had been selected for that there. So thank you very much for, I didn't realize I had that much power. So yeah, thanks for the recognition, I suppose there. Anyway, some of the other comments coming in, including Flaco Meta saying ankle biters are good if they do it right. And there's been a lot of that we've talked about and being possible in the area. James Ratcliffe also saying about how many fees are added to the electric bill in the area. That's a conversation that we're wanting to explore more, particularly as there's that possibility of new operations, the billing that has been brought up by some, as well as the whole smart meter thing, what that's going to mean, what is being put out by it. So there's more to come out with that. Some more of the conversations, including Ronaldo Rivera responding to a previous caller, Raul, saying there is so much money available. Dems are known for social programs and Republicans for foreign policy. That is kind of I've heard of similar kind of takes on how our politics are laid out in this country anyway. Some of the other comments that came in on this, the comments often give me life, particularly since it looks like we may be having issues with the phone lines here. But don't worry, we got plenty to talk about, plenty going on and affecting in this region, including one we weren't planning on totally talking about today. But according to El Paso Inc. reporting in their most recent edition, there are big expansions when it comes to those, private services. Healthcare is one of those interesting ways, at least in our local area, when there is both public services. We got UMC, certain hospitals of record, that kind of a thing, but Hospitals of Providence has announced a big new expansion with a land acquisition in far east El Paso. Again, according to the article from El Paso we got this weekend, Providence reveals plans for far east El Paso Health Campus. What they're actually looking at having out there is a medical office, building complex, and new workers to the far east. The group's chief strategy officer for the Hospitals of Providence. And they're one of the biggest employers here in El Paso, and there's been a lot of growth out that way. Anyone who's been out Joe Battle will have seen the big new medical campuses that exist out that way. So more focus on that, more ability. You could kind of see that as as being a outcome of a lot of focus that has happened. I mean, we've had the Medical Center of the Americas concept that has existed in the UMC area off of Reynolds Avenue, if I'm not mistaken, and the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, El Paso, and all that comes from that. Had a chance to late last year go through the actual dental facilities that exist out there. The dental school got to don't worry, I wasn't working on anyone or having a drill in their mouth, but some of the training implements that they use, including the not quite totally disturbing looking mannequin heads they have, but I was doing more on like one of the drill plates they actually do to help you understand what it takes to deal with enamel and not just stab someone straight through into the nerve that it comes to there. I think I did a decent job. They kept it, unfortunately, because they still use it as training tool, so I wasn't able to have it and show it to you, but I think I've got pictures that I've need to or have posted up online. So the actual continuing of the focus on this, we're seeing a lot of, Bernadette Bandicol referring to these simulation labs, of which are quite extensive, but also something I wasn't totally aware of is that they do have the clinics, particularly for those who have like time but not money in our area, where they do have the kind of training schools. And the way you can get, particularly in this case, the dental services from them, again, you're going to take a little bit more time because these are students. They are overseen. They have to have passed certain requirements to be able to even provide that level of services and do have fully trained and licensed oversight for them. But the technology that they're using there is personally just kind of fascinating to me, I got to say, because they're actually using, and I thought this was totally like sci-fi, but the future is becoming a reality here. 3D printed like implants and bridge work, among other things. So stuff that would have taken multiple visits. I mean, I've had like crowns and stuff put in my mouth, and it's you got to mold it. They have to make it. They have to use the the dental compounds and stuff like that. And so that now being available and just to 3D print it can happen within like a visit or two is just a little bit nuts to me. So I'm proud of what is being developed here in the borderland and the region, some of which is coming from, yes, government support, but otherwise being privately, focused on and allowing for people to create more industry and business out of it, I think is very important. And Bernadette Bandicol very much mentioning other important institutions such as, the UTEP School of Nursing and stuff like that. And Flaco Menace mentioning, I think from one of those institutions, sister and niece are both graduates. There was a defined deficiency in our area when it comes to medical services of all stripes. And so the long efforts that have been put into that are probably important. So getting far afield from the initial point there, the actual purchase of that $15 million plot of land in Far East El Paso and the potential investment of about $200 million was what was put into the Trans Mountain campus that is seen over on, just off Trans Mountain. A lot more needing to come out of there. That's pretty important there. Okay, an actual question being asked: is the language of the climate change bills in El Paso determined yet? It's not up on the EP County Votes website just yet, but I think I don't have it in front of me at this exact moment, so maybe we'll take that break here in a second and come back and answer that question. I do believe versions of it are up over on the El Paso, Texas.gov website under the city clerk. So let me see if I can find that here real quick. So we'll try to see if we can figure out what's going on with our phone lines here real quick, see if we can take at least one more call before we end the program. So taking that next break, coming back, talking about what we can. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Westbound on Trans Mountain near the Summit Pass, a rollover crash that has sent people to the hospital is blocking the right lane and causing half-hour delays. Trans Mountain backed up from Tom Mays Access Road all the way back to the 54 Gateway. A two-vehicle accident is blocking the left lane on I-10 eastbound at Cotton Street. Expect delays there. And Gateway East at North Piedras, there's a crash that's blocking the right lane. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast. The U.S. government's broke, per a new report from the U.S. Treasury. It's bad, so let's dig in. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
On the podcast, The Last Soviet, Lance Bass from NSYNC shares his own experiences of astronaut training in Russia. Yes, that's true. And tells the story of the final cosmonaut, a man trapped in space while his nation crumbled to the ground.
His name is Sergei Krikalev. He's a Soviet cosmonaut, and he's manning the world's only space station, the pride and joy of the USSR.
Listen to The Last Soviet on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text HUNK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text HUNK to 42424. That's HUNK to 42424.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Getting close to closing out the show here, but I think we'll squeeze in one more quick call here in a second. But one thing I want to mention, we did just post up over on the Facebook the link to the direct language for the El Paso Climate Charter. It's about 9 pages total, 7 like legalese pages. So I think it was particularly Bernadette Vanderkool asking, would I be able to speak to the Cliff Notes version of the City Climate Charter? Tell you what, we'll put a pin on that for next show here. So we'll talk about that tomorrow as one of our issues to try and break that down and not just read 7 pages of legalese. There are things like definitions and stuff that we'll try to break down for y'all here. But just one thing, as was brought up earlier in the program, I want to mention here that that proposition number C that was on the most recent City Council ballot, well, from the city of El Paso, really, that had that slim majority of winning. That's the $5.2 million for sustainability and environmental concerns. The floor votes were about 66,300, and the against was about 64,600. So, I mean, it was pretty close percentage-wise, 50.6 to 49.3.4%. But I will say that the undervotes on that one, meaning how many people voted yes or no on that proposition, was 10,000. So just saying, I think there's a lot of waking up need to be done about this. So talk more about that. Let's get at least one last call on the line here, since that's our purpose here. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you. I take exception with your last caller in a way, because he was arguing for the way the Senate is set up nowadays, which is by direct election.
Oh, sure.
And I believe in the direct election of our representatives, but as far as the Senate is concerned, the Senate is supposed to, from the way I understand it, take a look at and support the state itself, right? Represent the state, not the people of the state, but the state itself, composed of the people, of course. But otherwise, when we have, as we do today, direct election of representatives in the House of Representatives and the Senate, senators in the Senate, then we just have a big elected bunch of officials representing not the state, but the people directly. Where is the interest of the state taken into consideration, except by the governor?
I mean, that is the argument that essentially comes under, and I found that, by the way, it's the 17th Amendment, the one that saw that change from being the elected by representatives by the state legislators to being that direct election by the actual individuals inhabiting and citizens of a state. That's, I mean, the argument is still that there's 2 per, therefore they are of each state and still beholden to the wishes of the people there. But I mean, that is part of the argument that came even before and as it was established under the initial part of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, Clauses 1 and 2 of how senators were initially elected.
Right. And I like that idea. It's too bad it's gone. But also taking exception with what the caller said, look, I can't do anything about it. It is the way it is. And if I do want to do something about it, then I have to go to the trouble. It's a lot of work to try to get an amendment or a law or something in place to change that part of the system. And it's not just, you just can't, say, well, I wish this was done. I wish this was done. Okay, if you wish that was done, then get some work done and go out in your neighborhood, get some petitions and do it that way. Instead of just complaining about it, right?
I've often said politics doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about what you've done and the work you've put in. And that's pretty much exactly what you're talking about there, because that's what it takes to see things like that changed.
Oh, there's a lot of things that I would like to have done. I would like to see the speed limits increased or decreased depending on the street. I have to go through a lot of work to try to do something like that, or even to get in the school zone.
Certainly.
Lights and regulations and things like that passed. It takes a while. If you're willing to do the work, go out and do the footwork, get these people to sign your petition, whatever it is, fine. Otherwise, why complain about it?
I mean, that's a decent question to be asked, but tell you what, we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time here for the show. So I appreciate the point in the call, and I appreciate you all calling in and being a part of our show here today. We'll do it again tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Until next time, until tomorrow. We got a lot more coming up for you, including interviews on, well, taxes and other things, but stay tuned. More Talk El Paso tomorrow. Until then, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Trans Mountain is a mess right now, especially westbound, with over an hour and 15-minute delays due to a rollover crash that's still blocking one of the left lanes. Traffic in both directions near the Summit Pass is backed up, especially westbound. I-10 eastbound at Cotton, 2 vehicle accidents blocking the left lane, and on Gateway East at North Piedras, accident there's blocking the right lane. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Supreme Court is set tomorrow to hear a case against President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the program will give tens of millions of Americans more breathing room to start a family or buy a home. Republicans claim, in their words, working-class people are being forced to pay the bills for college grads. Millions in the Northeast and Midwest are bracing for another winter storm. It's a part of the same system that smacked California with snow and blizzard conditions in some areas. Sleet, snow, and freezing rain are spreading across the Great Lakes. Saudi Arabia is providing critical aid